I start work at a big law firm this week. Here's what I'm expecting from the job, what I'm most excited about, and what worries me. So the first thing I'm expecting from the job is the long hours. It's no big surprise that lawyers tend to work long, hard hours, and that is even more so in the big law world, where they're expecting you to punch in at least over 18 to 1900 billable hours, which is very different than what a normal work hour is for most people out there. So for most people, just a regular work hour would be one that you just go to work, you punch in your time that you were there present doing something, and that would be considered an hour of work. But for lawyers, we have something what's called a billable hour, and the expectation is that we have to hit a certain quota, a certain amount of hours, billable hours in the year, and the only things that apply towards that billable hours is anything that we are able to bill to a client. Responding to emails, doing some research on a question for a client, anything like that would be considered time for a billable hour. But things that you have to learn on your own that isn't necessarily doing any research for a client, that would be more on your time. So even though you take what the minimum is for a lot of law firms out there, which varies, we'll stick with my firm, which they told me is about 18-15. So you divide that by 52, you get roughly about 35 hours a week, which doesn't seem bad considering that a full-time gig is 40 hours a week. But when you consider that those 35 hours are just billable, that means that you're most likely working at least an extra 10 to 15 hours per week, where of those total of like the 60 hours a week that you're working, 35 of those, or sorry, I did the math wrong. So of the 50-hour a week that you are working, 35 of those would be considered billable hours. I just talked to an associate this past week. We had lunch where I simply just asked him straight up, like, how many hours does he actually work in a day? And he was pretty blunt with me. He told me that he worked roughly between 10 to 13 hours a day and then a few extra hours on the weekend. Now, I have heard from many people that on your first year, they don't really expect you to meet that requirement. One, because you kind of start in a weird time. Like I'm starting in October, and apparently at my firm, the fiscal year starts in October. So since I'm already starting a bit late, because I'm not starting at the beginning of October, and I have to do a lot of training that doesn't count towards billable hours, it's hard that I'll be able to actually meet the requirement. But apparently, as long as you're just not hiding from doing work, you probably won't get in any trouble. So that's the first thing I'm expecting. And the second thing I'm expecting from this job is network opportunities. Big law firms tend to have big clients, and with those big clients, eventually you'll probably start to be able to meet important people from your big clients, where there are even potential job opportunities for the future if you want to change something in your career. As of right now, I have no plans at all. I think I'm okay with where I'm at, and I would like to see how far I can go in my firm. But those are the two things that I'm expecting from this job. Now, going into the things that I'm most excited about this job would be, number one, start getting paid. I know that sounds like just very materialistic, but it's been about 3 years since I've actually had like a steady paycheck since starting law school, because they recommend you not work while you are in law school, but I did a few semesters, and because of that, like I've had a lot of like gaps in between where I wouldn't have a paycheck. But now that I'm starting like my actual real job after taking the bar exam, which I still have yet to receive if I passed or not, because the results don't come out until November. And yeah, it is kind of crazy that they allow you to start working before even knowing if you're licensed. But I'm glad that that's that, because if not, that would mean I would have to wait another month without having a steady income. And I'm kind of tired going into my savings and taking money out of my savings, because, well, I know they're there for this particular purpose, when you need extra money, but nobody likes to see their money, go down over time. But yeah, that's one of the main things I'm actually looking forward to the most, and I'm pretty sure anybody that is about to start a job would probably think the same. It's just, you need money to live. That's just the unfortunate truth, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to actually having a steady paycheck that would come in, every 2 weeks and whatnot. The next thing that I'm excited about is honestly actually learning how to be a lawyer. Like, I think a big misconception for a lot of people out there is that you learn how to be a lawyer in law school, which is just simply not true. You don't really learn how to be a lawyer in law school. They teach you how to think like a lawyer. You learn some things about what it is to be a lawyer, but you don't really learn how to be a lawyer. You don't get to learn that until you actually start working. Because once you start working, you're actually doing real assignments, and in those assignments, you're learning about how whatever practice group, whatever area of the law you're into, you're learning how all that works. It's just impossible for law school to teach you every aspect of the law that exists, because there's just so many different areas out there, and you start to specialize once you start working. I have run into some people that just think that because you're a lawyer, you kind of just know everything about the law, which is simply not the case. I have already had like family members reach out to me about things, areas of the law that have nothing to do with the practice group that I'm going into at all, but they just expect or at least assume that I know, am familiar, or can deduce, infer stuff with just a few documents, which is just simply not the case, because like I haven't even done any research. And don't worry, like I haven't accepted anything, because I told all of them that, hey, I'm not even a licensed attorney yet. But it's just it's just weird that that's just an idea that people have, that simply because you went to law school and you graduated law school, and even if you're licensed, that you now have this like abundance amount of knowledge of like every area of the law out there, which is just like it's ridiculous. Because like it would just be ridiculous that someone would have so much knowledge like that. It just it's just too much. It's just too much. But yeah, those are the two things that I'm excited about the most about starting my new job. And now going into the things that I think I'm worried about the most. I guess the first thing would be that I'll be too slow to adapt. I just think like I guess this has to do a little bit with imposter syndrome. Like, to a point, I do feel like I am where I'm at thanks to the efforts that I did, and I do feel deserving of where I'm at through the hard work that I put in. But the other aspect of me is saying like, okay, now that you're here, now how quickly can you adapt? And I think a fear of mine is that I take too long to adapt, because I want to be a great attorney. I want to be as efficient as possible and do it as quickly as possible, so that I am able to get the confidence of everybody around me, because that way, if I have their confidence, they'll be able to give me more work, or more work that I want to do at least. And that way I'll get more experience. If I get more experience, I become a better attorney. If I become a better attorney, I'll have more confidence. Though people will have more confidence in me. So it's like a cycle. But obviously the one thing that can prevent all of that, or at least hinder it a little bit or slow it down, would be if I take too long in adapting. Now I know that it's a learning curve, and I'm pretty sure they'll give me the resources that I'll need to be able to try to quickly adapt to everything. But I guess this is just more an internal struggle of wanting to be able to reach my potential, because I feel like I do have potential, and it's just being able to get there as quickly as possible. But I also know that I have to give myself some wiggle room and not become overly stressed or try to bring myself down if I start making mistakes at the beginning, because like that's the whole point of this process, right? At the very beginning is that because everything is so new and you're learning everything, you will be making mistakes. You have to learn from those mistakes and avoid making them in the future, and that way you actually are able to become a better attorney. But that is still something that I am worried about. And now another thing that I'm worried about is that I'll become a workaholic. Now, this has to do more of a very, very, very personal thing with me, is that it seems like I just simply cannot relax. Like I have, periods of time where I can in the day, but like overall, it's not that I just can't. I just can't simply just sit down and not think about anything or do anything at all. Like there's just something that I just need to keep doing. Like a clear example would be this whole YouTube thing. Like once I had my offer last year, I could have just simply, sat down and not done anything and not have to worry about anything, and just have to worry about like finishing law school and then taking the bar, and then that's it. I didn't have to add any unnecessary stress or any unnecessary projects on top of what I've already accomplished. At least that's what people around me would, tell me, like my parents included. They just said like, you are already being set up for your future. You already have everything planned out, and everything is going according to plan, and you just now have to be able to, take it in, take it slow, and just do everything that you already set yourself out to do in a timely manner? Or why are you adding all of this unnecessary things that you don't really need to do? Like I said, like this YouTube, there's no real point of me doing this YouTube, at least from a money point of view, I guess, a monetary point of view. There's no but I guess I'm not seeing this as of like a money making thing. Like I genuinely think I'm glad that I'm able to do this. Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea if this is any useful. There's anything useful about this videos to anybody. And I'm sorry that I'm going off on a tangent now, but it's like, because of that tendency that I know that I have and the people around me know that I have, that I just simply can't sit down and relax for long periods of time. I feel like that might spill into the workforce and my job and me becoming a workaholic, because once there's a project that's done, I want to do another one, and I want to do another one, I want to do another one, and all the incentives of the bonuses and the requirements of the billable hours, like, I don't know how all that's going to input into my brain, and how I'm going to interpret that, how I'm going to take that. Am I going to take that as like, oh no, I'm going to work my ass off, but then completely just like hit a wall, and I completely overwork myself and I don't want to keep doing anything more? Or am I going to see it more as a challenge, as like, oh, I can keep going to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and end up being sucked into my work, and I've seen a lot of people like that in my life, and not in the legal field, but in like other aspects and other jobs, where they're incentivized by all these other things, and the biggest thing would obviously be the money. When you start seeing that certain things will get you certain bonuses or will get you certain amounts of money, will that be enough of an incentive to suck me in and make me not want to stop work? I hope that's not the case, because I want to be a family man. Eventually I want to have family, I want to have kids, and when you become a workaholic and you dedicate your entire life and all your hours in the day into just your job, regardless of what it is, you can't do the other part. You start neglecting your family, your kids, and I just don't want that to be me. And I keep trying to remind myself that that's not going to be me, and I'll be able to keep myself in check. I even told my parents to keep myself in check. I told my girlfriend to keep me in check. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I'm also it's still something that I should know, and I should keep in my head, that there's a possibility there, and I feel like acknowledging it actually helps me be able to prevent it. But yeah, these are the things that I'm expecting, excited, and most worried about my new job. And I guess I'll give you an update about how things are going in a few weeks, I guess. Well, that's it. Bye.